Hey Les, how you doing?
Doing great, doing well.
Good. It's Valentine's Day. We're really happy because love is in the air
Yep.
and because it is an episode where one of my favorite new favorite people in my life is here with us. I'm gonna say Dr. Rebecca Eldredge. Okay, Rebecca is with us and really excited about her work, sharing it with you. We love to share joy. And Rebecca is someone who does some incredible work. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we go into that, let us introduce ourselves. Welcome to another
And
episode of Black Boomer Besties from Brooklyn. I'm Angella. And that is my best friend of almost 50 years, Leslie. We are two intellectually curious older Black women. We like to dig down. We're not surfacey people. We like to dig deep on issues. We like to push against norms and disrupt systems and ways of thinking that deserve to be disrupted. And we're going to be doing that today also. But Leslie has an ask before we get started.
so, in honor of Valentine's Day and as a birthday present, because my birthday was 2 days ago, I'd like you to press like and subscribe. Do it for me. Do it for me. But we think that you'll get something out of it too, because I think that you'll like our content. And if you hit notifications, you'll be notified of when we drop new content, and you'll be all in and one of our honorary besties. So hit that button right now.
Thank you for that.
And
Okay.
Ange, for
Yes.
Valentine's Day, I want to say I heart you.
Oh boy.
And as one of my besties and the bestie for almost 50 years, happy Valentine's Day, love.
Thank you, sweetie pie. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy
Thank you.
Valentine's Day to everyone in our listening audience. Rebecca's wearing red today. We're really, she's ready. She's ready. And so let me start with how we met. Rebecca and I met about a year ago. Has it been a year, Rebecca?
It
Yeah, a little
has.
over a year.
January.
In Puerto Rico, we went for a conference, the ROI conference. Rachel Rogers has a yearly conference called ROI. We met there. We were actually roommates in a big Airbnb. And we just energetically connected. And so we had long talks late at night on walks. And I know you guys can understand when I talk about energy. For me, it's kind of the way that questions and answers play back and forth between two people sometimes really shows energy because we were able to talk about some things that I think other people who may not have had this connection would have felt really uncomfortable. Obviously, Rebecca's a white woman. Obviously, I'm a Black woman. And I'm going to read a little bit about her work so that you kind of understand how deep some of these conversations may have been. So for 2 decades, licensed psychologist Dr. Rebecca Eldredge has focused on integrating multicultural issues into her work with clients, higher ed systems, organizations, and refugees. As a therapist, speaker, coach, and facilitator, she applies her mental health expertise and passion for social justice in service of those who give so much of themselves to others. Her work centers the catalyst of compassion and well-being. Let me read that again.
Yeah, read that again.
Her work centers the catalyst of compassion and well-being to maximize impact and wholehearted living. She looks out for the people who look out for others, in other words. Rebecca incorporates neuroscience and somatic approaches into how we take care of ourselves and each other, engage with difficult conversations, and improve relationships and systems to be spaces of inclusion, belonging, and safety for all people. I'm going to stop there because the rest just
Mm.
lists all of her education and incredible academic um, uh, accolades. But we're going to stop there because this is why we connected and why we were able to
Mhm.
have such deep conversations. So with that, I'm going to
Welcome.
open up to Rebecca. Dear Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Rebecca also, I think we both have these ways of knowing when the other has a need and just kind of, hey, how's it going? Thinking about you. Everything good? So
Mhm.
we've been doing that. And earlier this week, Rebecca reached out because she's created these workshops, these free workshops, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. We'll put the links to this. Hopefully, you'll
Mhm.
be able to catch one or two of them by the time this airs. Um, and Rebecca, can you tell us about these workshops and why you felt compelled to do them now? Yes.
Yes, sure. Well, there's the simplest answer is because of the conversations that I was having with people, my clients, my friends, my family, people in my network over the past 3 weeks ish in
Mm,
particular.
Mhm.
I'd been doing a lot of checking in with people. And I was hearing a lot of the same challenges over and over again, especially people feeling really dysregulated, really
Mm.
overwhelmed, really incapacitated by the news and
mm,
by taking in information, seeing what's happening locally, nationally,
Mhm.
internationally, and and hearing people really struggle with the tension between wanting to be informed and engaged and feeling like doing so really just took them completely out of commission at
mm.
times, like, not being able to function with taking in a lot of what was happening.
Mm.
Very familiar. Very
So, as I
familiar.
was having these conversations repeatedly one on one and realizing how pervasive that challenge was, I found myself kind of getting to some of the same points with people, them finding those helpful, and then some friends eventually
Mm.
said, "You need to put this into a workshop."
Wow.
Please, please.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
so, just really looking at, okay, this is what people are needing right now, and how do I make it available to as many people as possible?
So I attended the workshop this past Wednesday and highly recommend it. I'll tell you a particular thing that was helpful for me, and I've been doing it. And actually, not only have I been doing it, but I also have shared this with my siblings. We had a sibling call yesterday, and I shared it with them because yes, this is this is a real thing. Um, and so what Rebecca suggested that we do, one of the things, is to be really clear about why you're consuming the news. Um, Pick a thing. For me, it's traveling abroad and how the changes that are going on will affect that.
Mm.
And consume the news that is related to that. Something that helps you to be in action, to be planning, to be not distracted, but moving towards a goal that you have versus being all
Mm.
over here and bombarded. It becomes this resource versus something that causes a lot of distraction and distress and depression. And so, Rebecca, that was my one major takeaway from the workshop, which started with meditation, which was beautiful. So I want to thank you for that. And I describe it because I want people to understand that these workshops, they give you actual tools. I think you actually call it, what's the name of the workshop? You call it tools, right?
Tailored tools for these times. And really,
Mm.
because what people were using before is not working for them now.
Mm,
And I think that's really been an additional source of distress. Is like, I do these things. How come I'm still feeling so bad? Like
mm,
it's not like people didn't have coping strategies before that they were
mhm,
using. It's not like people haven't been through stressful times in the past, and so it's like, but in these times, people
mm,
are needing to do some tinkering with the
mm,
tools that they have
mhm,
and sometimes expand, sometimes just modify a little bit to figure out this is a new moment in your life, in history. Like this moment has never happened in exactly this way. And so really looking at specific tools or ways you can use tools that are different now than they were before.
Mm.
yeah, yeah. I'm
I
really
I
grateful
think
for it.
it's kind of interesting that you bring up using tools or coming up with some type of strategy. I just had a conversation with a family member just yesterday, and she was explaining to me that she has a lot of anxiety looking at television these days. And she says, what Trump is doing is really frightening me, and I may need to take my money out of the bank, and what am I going to do with it if they take it, all of these federal changes, and she was really expressing this anxiety. And what I
Mhm.
offered was that I said, maybe you can change the way that you look and take in that information. I mean, instead of watching television or the same shows every day, maybe you can look at it every other day or once a week or something like that. So it seems like it's going to require us to change normal habits that are comfortable for us and have worked for us in the past.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly,
Right.
and she's certainly not alone with the
Mhm,
anxiety
Mm.
and
mhm,
so much of
mhm,
news. I
oh,
mean,
the
we're in this
band
media
did everything.
environment where information is so overstimulating. It's coming so fast and furious, one thing on top of another. You're just processing the last thing, and three more things have still come on top of it before you've even finished with
Yeah.
one. And so Leslie, your point is exactly right. Like to really consider what are the sources. For some people, for example, the visual is more distressing. So reading it or listening to it versus seeing the images on a screen.
Mhm, mhm,
So really getting into the details and the nuances of noticing this is what I'm wanting to get out of it, as Angela said. This is my purpose for consuming this information or this news. And what are the
Ah.
sources that are going to best serve that purpose so that I can come away doing something with that
mhm,
information
mhm.
that's useful
Right.
for
And
those
and
Mm.
and
purposes.
giving you a sense of control and movement,
Yeah.
progression instead of being in chaos and swirl and in the vortex of,
Yeah,
of everything
yeah.
that's going on. And also not putting your head in the sand as if nothing is
Right.
going on, right?
And it's so funny
Yeah.
that you say that because I have been feeling victimized is a good word,
Mm,
by just the whole media, the everyday, every hour news cycle. And as a result of just not wanting to bring in so much information into my space, I've
mhm,
been missing listening to my typical news sources or
mm,
watching television or the talk shows that I've been used to listening to. I kind of feel like my head is in the sand a little bit.
mm,
Like I
mhm.
haven't heard what's going on with the Oscars or this or that because I'm kind of shutting it down. And I'm
Right.
not really sure how to get back into it, but on a smaller scale. Put
Mhm,
my toe back into the water.
mhm, mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. Um, so on Rebecca's, workshop, one of the she asked a question, and it made me think about, my privilege, right? And I thought
Mm,
about that, Les, because, certain of us, we have, I think it is privilege to not be, listening to certain things, right? Because it's not
mm.
affecting us, or it's some,
Oh.
it's some ways away from us. We're not feeling the direct impact of it.
Mhm.
I was watching, Mo. It's a series, a Palestinian comedian,
Oh, yeah.
and they
I've
just
heard of it.
released a new season, and I mean, it's just a really well done show, and one of my favorite performing artists, Toby Nwigwe, is on it. And anyway, so his his mother in the show was constantly looking at the news. And this was before, it must have been filmed before the kind of more intense attacks in Gaza. And she she just couldn't help it because her family was there, and she, everywhere she went, she was on her phone. This is an older woman, and she was constantly on her phone. And that comes to mind right now because um, things were directly affecting her, and she didn't feel like she had the liberty or the the she felt like she had a responsibility to
Mm-hmm.
consume the news, because to do otherwise was to be ignoring those people that she loved or cared about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so in that way is the way that I'm talking about privilege in this moment, that um Rebecca, maybe you can speak to some of that, because that's some of where my guilt is coming up too, is that okay, I can choose what to listen to because I'm a little bit removed from it at this point anyway.
Yeah.
So have you heard that type of um sentiment expressed by your client, or what might you say about that?
Yes, and I can relate to holding privilege in a
This
number of
the
my
fight
identities,
Hmm.
including as a white
waver.
person as well,
It
and then making intentional choices around that.
Hmm.
So, for a lot of people, that's why I start early on with what are your intentions? A lot of
Hmm.
people say, I want to be informed, but informed for what? Like, informed why?
Mm.
Why is it
Mm.
important to you to be informed? Do you just want to feel like, oh, I know everything that's going on? For most people, that's not the end goal.
Yeah.
It's not just to be
Yeah.
a know-it-all for
Mhm.
most people, maybe for a few. But, for most people, there's something beyond that. I want to be informed so that I know what to say if ICE does a raid in my neighborhood. I
Mhm.
know what my
Mm-hmm.
rights are. I know what my neighbor's rights are. Or I want to be informed so that I can call my representatives and voice my opinion. I want to be informed. One of the things for me is I want to be informed so that I know how to show up for my clients, so
Mhm.
that even if it's not my personal experience, they're not having to educate me over and over and over again on what they're
Sure.
facing, what they're
Sure.
going through. Right. So if people get beneath the surface of what they're wanting to know and why they're wanting to know it, then the choices change around that. And then
Mhm.
even though, for
Yeah.
example, I still have the privilege and I don't look, I'm not scanning the news stories every hour because that would be a disservice to my goals. I would be less capable of showing up for people and being present
Oh.
and being responsive and taking
Mm-hmm.
action if I'm constantly sending myself into overwhelm. And so
Mhm.
Wow.
I think you can use the privilege. I mean, you can also turn the privilege around and say, I
Mm.
do have this privilege. And because
Mhm.
I have this privilege, I want to use it really intentionally.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so for me, the privilege is integrated
Yeah.
into what is my purpose for consuming news. How
Mhm.
am I going to
Okay.
use that news and my privilege to go out and make a difference, to be there for my clients,
Right.
to show up in my community and
Right.
advocate for the changes that I want to see?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty powerful.
It
And
is.
by being selective in that way, you feel more empowered and not just a voyeur looking in, when you want to get the latest, sensationalism or to talk to someone about it on social media or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, way more intentional. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another thing that I got really clear about as a result of your workshop is to be selective around the source of the news that I'm getting, right? So
Mhm.
who are some people in the political realm that I trust? Stacey Abrams, for example, right?
Mhm.
Who are some of the podcasts that I trust? Karen Hunter, for example, right?
Mhm.
And just to be deliberate, because I think because there's been a lot of intentionality, including self-care in how I've been consuming what has been unfolding, it has allowed me to be able to now, okay, I can kind of see what's going on. I do want to get involved. How? And so it's not by all of this, because that will be like depleting me. Who are the people that I can listen to and take action based on what they're saying, right? And
Mhm.
just block the other stuff
Mhm.
out. And so just being really, really clear about doing that and moving into action is something else that I want to thank you for, because it, the workshop, I can kind of workshop. Let me just say, it was a gift. I focused on something that was really meaningful for an hour, something that soothed me, something that informed me.
Mm.
And that is why I asked Rebecca to come onto our podcast, because um, we are joy sharers. We if we experience
Yeah.
something that is positive and progressive and moves us forward and clears the path for us, we bring it here. And so that's why we're having this conversation. That's why Rebecca's here.
Yes.
I
So,
appreciate that. I do appreciate that, and I feel like that's, my mission is maybe, correlates with that, because I feel like one of the most important things that my soapbox is again and again is about well-being, and
mhm,
joy is such a part of well-being.
yeah,
It's in fact, I think you can't really claim to have well-being if you're not having joy as a
right,
part of that.
Yeah.
right,
And yet, it's something that people often compromise on or
yeah,
try to cut corners around, and it's the most important thing if you're wanting to continue to live, like, not just survive, but
mhm,
live,
mhm,
thrive,
mhm,
be wholehearted in
Mhm.
your relationships, be engaged in the world. Most people have some way that they want to be remembered or some legacy that they want to leave behind, right? And if you're running yourself into the ground because you're expending so much energy towards others that you're not taking care of yourself, then you're depleting what actually could be a renewable resource. Your
ooh,
well-being can be a renewable resource, but
wow,
you
Rebecca.
have to
Never looked
tend
at it
to
like
it.
that.
Rebecca, you said a word. Wow. Yeah. This person immediately comes to mind. I won't call her name, but if she's listening, she's going to know. Um, I have a friend who is an entrepreneur and just and a parent, grandparent, and she just goes so hard to leave her children a legacy, to make her business I to build her business, to grow her business. She's very community minded. And I don't think she knows how to see the world through seeing herself as a renewable resource versus a resource that I'm going to
Mhm.
just expend it all for those around me, and I'll think of myself after. What would you say to someone like her who feels really committed to legacy to the detriment of her own health
And
and
personhood,
well-being
yeah.
and joy?
Mhm. Well, she's certainly not alone in that, because I would say that's a huge percentage of the change makers and leaders that I work with. are in that boat where they
Mhm.
care so deeply for their family, for their friends, for the world around them. Even for their jobs, right? Where they're
Mhm.
expending so much energy, whether for their own business or for the organization that they work for. And you said, Angela, you said it, you're like, I'll take care of myself later. It's,
Yeah.
something along
Mhm.
those lines. Like once I take care of everybody
Yes.
else,
Once I fix
then
everything.
whatever's left,
Yeah.
those are the scraps that I'll live off of.
Mm.
That those will be the moments that I'll, close my eyes and take a breath.
Right.
Mhm.
And the oxygen mask example gets overused. I recognize it's overused. I'm gonna overuse it again with a question of, we talk about it like it's so easy to think about, well, yes, of course, logically, you have to put on your own oxygen mask first. And if you have a consistent flow of oxygen, then you're able to help more people put on their oxygen masks. But what we don't talk about is that moment where if you're in a plane and the oxygen mask drops down and you're sitting next to a friend or an elder or your child, how hard would it be to see that loved one gasping, struggling, and to go, just a minute, and put on your own mask
Mm.
first?
Mm.
So I would say, first of all, like, I'd start from
Wow.
there because I think we have to validate how hard it
Wow,
is.
that just touched me, really.
Mhm.
I was right there with you, and yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's not easy because when we care deeply, when we feel deeply, when we're connected to our love for people, um, in whatever form that takes. And we're often also then trained and socialized to think of others first. I think in
yeah,
particular, women are
yeah.
socialized to think of others first. Then it's like really rewriting all that internal talk.
Yes.
Mhm.
All that script
All
has to be
that's in our
rewritten.
DNA has to be turned around a little bit. And then as a physician, as a anesthesiologist, I'm putting oxygen on people all the time.
Mhm.
And that's why it related so closely to me that you always think that I'm going to be all right, I'm
Mm.
going to be okay, but I need to think about you. You know, um yeah, it certainly is going to need to have a change in paradigm. We really are going to need to change that because one thing that Ange has always said, and she's really I'm really getting it, is that
After 50 years almost, yeah.
is that our gifts, when we are given gifts and abilities, it's our duty and obligation to do our best to fulfill them and share them. So if we are not taking care of ourselves in order to dispense our gifts, well, then we are not doing the best that we can do with what we were given.
Right.
We are not here to put a lamp, cover our light, but the light has to be, we need to strengthen our light.
Mhm.
We need to replenish our light, and we need to recognize when our light needs replenishing.
Right.
Mhm.
And what I
And
heard
yeesh,
Rebecca
that's the
say,
hardest part.
um,
Mhm.
the point that I took away from what Rebecca said is it doesn't mean like something that is gonna take you, it's a moment. It takes a moment
Yeah,
to put the
yeah.
mask on.
It takes a moment,
And
but
so
what a
sometimes when you
moment.
think about, "Oh, I gotta do all of this to get ready to help myself," because it's sometimes just a moment, just the thought. How about just thinking about how about just thinking about,
Mm.
um, the imagery that Rebecca gave us? Like, it just takes a moment, but you're so in your head about, "No, I can't. I
Look
have
over
to
there, look over
help."
there, look over there.
And it's like you're, like, putting on the mask and then you pass out because you didn't turn it around and put it on you first. Come on.
Right.
Come
Right. I
on.
mean, I don't know how maybe you can help. I haven't timed it. I haven't looked at the research. Leslie, maybe you know, like how long can you hold your breath without oxygen? How many other people's masks can you put on
Wait,
first?
Yeah,
Right? But
for goodness
it's
sake,
certainly it's certainly going to be less
not very long.
than if you put your mask on and then the amount of people you can
right.
help, right? And
It's a
so,
multiplier. It's a multiplier when you
yeah.
choose to do that first, right?
Yeah, so
Wow.
really, I mean, I think that's so essential for your friend, for so many
Ooh.
people out there is needing to recognize again and again, this is hard. This doesn't come naturally. Maybe it doesn't come easily. It's a new habit that you have to build. It's a new muscle that you have to strengthen. And yet to recognize, similar to what we were talking about with the news, like you're doing it for a purpose.
Mhm.
Everything that you care about, you'll be able to do more of more
Mhm.
effectively when you are taking care of your own oxygen supply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
message that I'd like to give is that it is not a selfish endeavor
Right.
when you put your
Exactly.
own oxygen on first. I know I can say culturally as a Black woman, it's almost in our DNA that we are givers and family people and nurturers and all of that. And when we turn our attention to self-improvement and betterment, sometimes it can be looked at as a negative thing. You're too self-centered, or you're not family, or that you're very selfish. Um, and we have to change the way that we look at other people and their behaviors. Yeah, it is not selfish to take care of yourself, to practice
No.
self-care. You
Mhm.
could
Yeah.
say, okay, I need to be there for my family. I'm the
Mhm.
sole provider, or I'm this source, but I gotta bring my best self to me.
Yeah. It could be just, I need no, don't bring the grandchild at 12. Bring her at 12:30 because I'm gonna take a little nap, or I'm gonna go buy myself some ice cream and sit in the park. Do you know what I mean? It could just be really simple, small things. I know sometimes it's like you got to lose 50 pounds, and it's like, but it
Yeah.
starts with losing a half pound. You
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
just start. Um,
Mhm.
I don't want to. I don't want to run out of time without asking you, Rebecca, how did you Miss White Woman from, Michigan. Yes? Michigan.
Mhm.
How did you come to have marginalized people, and these people who are, the change agents in the world,
Mhm.
how did they become the core of your work? Like, paint that story for us, because 'cause I'm curious. I know the story, but I'm curious. They're curious.
There's so many different pieces and layers to it. It's like a thousand-piece puzzle, really, but I'll try to
Leslie's a
lay out a
puzzle
few of
doer,
the
so she
pieces.
gets it.
Bring it on. I love
Yeah.
puzzles.
I had early experiences, of course, that shaped me. The church that I grew up in was one that was very social justice oriented. The
Mhm.
messages and the teachings there were very much around love and inclusion and everybody having worth and everybody belonging. So when I started to have recognition that that's not how everybody was treated, that's not how
Mhm.
everybody was living, then there
Mhm.
was a real dissonance there. And then I had so many experiences, kind of across differences of background, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, geography, where I was getting to witness and experience the immense resilience and strength and joy of different people living through different hardships. So whether I was on service projects or I was housed with a family in Jamaica for a few weeks on a service project trip. My first year out of college, if you can picture my 22-year-old white girl self, my first job was that I was hired and I was working as a house parent at a boys' home in inner city Detroit. So all of the boys were African American in that home. And there I am, 22-year-old me, trying to run a household and help them with their homework and shuttle them to and from school and activities and fix meals and, and understand like how to maneuver in this inner city environment where when I went to the grocery store, I was usually the only white person in that grocery store. And then I went to grad school a couple years after that. And I remember in my multicultural counseling course, and I have to kind of chuckle at myself now, but this was part of my learning. We were assigned a chapter, and in the chapter, I don't remember the full title, but it had color blindness in the title.
Oh.
And I thought, oh, great, like perfect, like this
Yes,
is
all lives
me.
matter.
Yes. And then I start reading the chapter and my eyes were opened and I realized all of the shortcomings to that point of view and all of the ways in which that really invalidated everything that I just described, the immense strength and determination and joyfulness and resourcefulness of recognizing how different people's experiences were such a core part of who they are. And as a therapist, as a budding therapist, the most important thing to me was to be able to create a space. I mean, the reason why I wanted to be a therapist to begin with was because I wanted people to be able to come in and share their most intimate parts of their struggles, of their identities, of their experiences, and be understood and be valued and be recognized in that. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do that if I was ignoring or minimizing, kind of dismissing. So I had to keep learning, and I wanted to keep learning. The more I understood, the more I learned, the more I knew what I still needed to learn, the more I wanted to learn, and it's such a rewarding experience, that as I, over time, have built relationships and strong connections with people from different places around the world, different backgrounds, different religions, different ethnicities, all like every time it enriches my world as well. And I cannot fathom loving them and not caring about the experiences that they're living in.
Wow.
So it just, it just kind of keeps expanding. It's just an ongoing ripple effect.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Rebecca, in that regard, what do you make of the movement to remove diverse populations from public life and corporations and
Even
it's
the discussion about it, even the language
heartbreaking.
is,
I think
yeah.
it's heartbreaking. I mean, I know that both of you also seek to understand other points of view.
yes.
And because my experience has been so enriched by relationships, by, not just knowing people, not just like a hello, how are you, but by getting to know, I mean, being a therapist is such a gift. You get let into my clients regularly tell me, like, there's nobody else in the world that knows everything about me that you know about me. That is a huge honor.
Yeah. What a
And
privilege.
so to think about the loss, the people who are losing their lives, the people who are losing their livelihoods, the people who are losing their financial security, that's heartbreaking. And then it's also heartbreaking because of the damage it's going to do to these organizations and to these systems who are going to suffer from not having the brilliance of people there contributing their unique gifts and strengths and perspectives to
Mhm.
help those businesses, those organizations, and those systems to be that much more meaningful.
Right.
And,
Right.
for people who are measuring it by the dollars, also more financially successful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was just going to ask you what America stands to lose with these behaviors and actions and proposals, and you said it right there. You said it right there.
Everything.
Everybody's would win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard it's very hard for me to relate from my own experience. Where I see it is in like the science of fear, right? And the science of
Mm.
people feeling threatened, people feeling like they're in scarcity, like if other people are getting more, then it means I'm going to get less. There's a
Mm.
lot of discussion around white men in particular feeling, kind of emotionally insecure and threatened. And, so I do a lot of pondering around the psychology of it from different angles. But there's so much to lose, there's so much more to be
Mhm.
gained through inclusiveness. And, I don't have the experience, obviously, of being a Black woman. I never will. Or being in this country a religious minority or
Mhm.
a sexual minority. But I think most people, even if you don't share a specific identity characteristic, there's a time in your life where you felt excluded.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
I know I have,
Mhm.
and I wish that we could come together around a humanity of you don't have to have lived somebody else's exact experience in order to genuinely care and feel compassion
Yeah, and
for the
empathy.
emotions. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my
Leslie, you're
gosh.
the timekeeper, right? Is that
Yeah, I'm checking time. We're we're
okay.
we're good, but
I want to go
this is
in. I want to
so
ask a question.
meaty and important. Go ahead, Ange. I have some thoughts also in the question. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. Thank
I'm
you.
getting a
Thank you for
headache. This is
deferring.
so
Thank you.
heavy, Dr. Rebecca.
Oh,
This is heavy.
It's
Necessary. Necessary.
yeah, I think it's okay.
I have to bring
So,
my head out of the sand in order to engage. Yeah.
yes, ma'am. Rebecca, what so you're in this um Venn diagram, right? So you're white, black, or white other. Um, they intersect. You're kind of in the intersection there, right? Um, what are you hearing from people in your circle or not in your circle, just people who you're around? What are some perspectives that they may have that can help the people over here to kind of understand? And you kind of probably touched on it when you talked about fear and how that shows up and scarcity and things like that. Any insight that you can give to us, to our listeners around? I mean, we don't want to think of other people as being evil, right? Um, what 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 insights can you give us from that part of your experience that could help us to understand what can be at play in people
Mhm.
really supporting some of the things that are really harmful to us over here? Does that is that clear?
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that we've been seeing fear um, be weaponized, right? And so when things like diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, belonging, access, these things are have been increasingly treated as dirty words,
Mhm.
as as so the narrative that's been promoted in these particular pockets around that is that this is a threat to your ability to get a job, right? If this is a threat to your ability to get into the college of your choice, this is a threat to, then those things, of course, this is a threat to your ability to live your life, provide for your family. Um, and I've been listening to, just earlier today, actually, part of a conversation where somebody was being interviewed on Christian nationalism and how intertwined that is as well. And I am not an expert in that area, so I can't really deliver the conversation that they're delivering, but they make a really strong case for that within this particular subset, right? It's not all Christians, it's not all forms of Christianity. We're seeing some very public examples of that, with Reverend giving the message. I think the two of you did a podcast on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bishop
Reverend
Buddy.
Buddy. And yet for this message that's like not so much a separation of church and state, in fact, maybe even really advocating for the opposite of that. And so anything that's not for that, and I would say this, I see examples of this on social media from people in my circle, then it's a threat to their belief system. Then it's a threat to their religious freedom. It's like almost like, well, if you're not willing to put the 10 Commandments in schools, then you're threatening my religious belief, right? And so I think still there's this operating from this sense of, if you're wanting to do it differently, or if you're wanting the freedom to do it differently, then somehow that's taking away from my opportunities. And I think that does a lot of damage, because it does pit people against one another, and cause people to move into a state of dysregulation. When we feel threatened, our nervous system has responses for that, but they're not programmed to help us thrive or be our most ethical, moral selves, or problem solve effectively, or communicate compassionately. It's programmed to protect my survival.
So the more you stay in that state, the more it's that response versus a considered, rational way of thinking. You stay in that kind of
in that
fight
or
state.
flight, or yeah.
Wow.
But Rebecca, how you mentioned earlier that one of the formative influences of who you are was your religious faith and your interpretation of the Bible, love your neighbor and be giving, and the we think of the parables of the stranger and things like that, but that doesn't seem to be the same lesson, the same understanding or practice from many of the evangelicals or the Christian nationalists. I don't see the same love of the other, or recognition of who the neighbor is, or that Jesus-like spirit. It almost seems just the opposite to me. When Bishop Buddy asked the president very directly for mercy for those who were afraid and suffering, a large part of the population mocked her and said she is absolutely not a religious leader, and they never even recognized the plea for mercy. So if we can't recognize even that she was humbling herself in front of this man of power, I don't know, where do we go from there? Just to get a little bit of peace in our hearts.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, I do think there are certain messages that are being amplified and when we hear something a lot and loudly, then we tend to interpret that as the most widespread or predominant viewpoint. And I question that, how much what we're seeing and what we're hearing is an accurate representation. Because when we look at actually polls that show what are the views, what are the values, what do most Americans think, what do most U.S. citizens think, what do most Christians think, I don't think that the numbers are representative. They're not matching the preponderance of what we're seeing and hearing, especially when you look at how algorithms are influencing even what you see in a news feed or what you see in your social media feed.
Right.
So, we're almost circling back to that earlier question of what are the sources of where you're really getting your information, because it can skew your perception. And some people, the people that are feeling isolated, it's working. I'll say it's working because I'm hearing a lot of people say, like, I feel like I'm alone. I feel like I'm the only one who's having, looking around and saying there's a problem with this.
Yep.
And that is not true. So if you're feeling that way, please take heart and hope in the fact that that is not true. There are millions of people that care. I was on one organizing call that had 50,000 people registered for it at the beginning of the hour, had 80,000 people registered for it by the end of that hour.
Wow.
And that's just the people for 1 hour of time showing up because they care.
Wow.
So just, really, we don't know what's possible if we hope and take action, but we do know what's possible if we don't. And so,
yes.
so please take heart, connect, look for the people that care. There are people and organizations doing amazing work, and that is where I draw so much of my inspiration from.
Oh, man, what a wonderful way to end this segment. In other words, the monsters are not as big as they seem.
Yes. My kids used to watch VeggieTales, and just forgive me for not being able to sing, but it goes God is bigger than the boogeyman. He's bigger than Godzilla or the monsters on TV. Oh, God is
Wow.
bigger
Wow.
than so
Yeah.
okay, in my brain that pops in because it's like you think that things are so insurmountable, and so what I heard Rebecca say is to find your tribe, find the people who care, find the people who are doing the work. You don't have to do it by yourself. You don't have to feel like it's only you. You can plug into those organizations, probably right in your neighborhood. That someone just told me about the Pauli Murray. There's a Pauli Murray community group here that I have to plug into because they're doing the work. So
Wow.
anyway,
So this has been wonderful. We're at the end
thank you so
now.
much, Rebecca. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for sharing this. I'm encouraged. I'm inspired. We're going to provide links to your information and how people can continue to know about the wonderful work that you're doing. But I feel blessed to have spent this time with you.
Thank you. Rebecca, can you just mention your workshop, please? And we'll also put links, but just mention your workshop and when it is and so on, please.
Sure. So right now there's a series of 3, and then we'll see what people need after that. But we did the first one, as we were talking about, Angela, this past Wednesday, and that was really about how to protect yourself through prevention, through being very intentional, especially around the news, but certainly applies to other areas. The next one is going to be around understanding your own unique nervous system responses. So,
Mm.
really being able to tune into the nuances of how your thoughts and feelings and physical sensations change
Wow.
depending on what's going on with your nervous system so that you can respond to it with more understanding and compassion rather than just kicking yourself while you're down. And the third one will be on recovery. When you find yourself in these states of overwhelm, fight or flight, freeze, like head in the sand, how do you bring yourself back into a state of calm, clear, connected, where you can problem solve, take action, connect with your loved ones,
Hmm.
all of the good things of functioning optimally that come from that place. So, how to be able to use what you understand about yourself to recover more quickly. And each of them is obviously related to the others, but they can also stand alone. So,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
people haven't come to the first one, that's okay. And, I have Angela knows I did not record the live one because the live ones are a private, safe space for people to come and participate and share and not have to worry about
Oh.
where that recording is going afterwards. But I had recorded just a content piece from the first one separately. And so if people are interested in that by registering, they can also get the copy of that recording.
Oh,
That's
that's
awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Well,
Highly
thank you.
recommended. Highly recommended. Okay, guys, thank you for being a part of the episode today. We appreciate it. Yeah, take us out, Les.
So this has been another episode of Black Boomer Besties from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.